Welcome to another edition of Cybersecurity Divas Leadership Moments with Lendrell Downs. Today's edition is brought to you by Fortify Experts, a cybersecurity search and consulting firm that helps companies build high-performing security and risk teams. Now here's Lynn.
Hello, everybody. This is Lendrell Downs. I'm founder of Cybersecurity DIVAS, and I have Tamika Bass, Chief Information Security Officer for the Georgia Department of Revenue. Hey, Tamika, how you doing?
Good. How are you, Lynn?
I'm great. Well, let's get started here. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So, as you said, I'm the CISO for the Georgia Department of Revenue. I've been in the role almost a year now. Prior to that, I was the CISO at the Georgia Department of Public Health, where I spent about 3 years working in the public health space. Prior to that, I came from Capgemini. I was working for Capgemini on a state government contract. So that's how I made a lot of my connections in the state and was able to transition into a CISO role in the state. And prior to that, I spent 2 years at SunTrust Bank as a information security officer. Started my career in cybersecurity about 2008. So I've been in the space for a while, still learning. Every day is a new challenge. Every day I'm learning something different. So happy to be here,
Great. Yeah, you were chosen to be one of our divas out there. From just based on what you just told me, you are a driven, inspirational, visionary person that's taken action in security, and I actually applaud you.
Thank you.
No problem. Well, can you tell me, how did you first get involved in cybersecurity?
So it's a pretty interesting story, Lynn. I moved here from New Jersey back in 2005, and I took a job as a technical trainer at a reinsurance company in Atlanta, and actually went out on maternity leave and came back, and I was told that I was going to be responsible for cybersecurity and business continuity. And I remember saying, like, cybersecurity, well, back then they call it information security more.
Yeah.
So I was like, information security, really, what is that? So of course, because they were doing so many transformation, I didn't give any pushback. But what I did do is I went back to school and got a second master's with a concentration in cybersecurity so that I can kind of get a little bit more familiar with what it was. So a lot of it was on the job training, but I also went back and got some secondary education. And once I got into the field, I was kind of doing both business continuity and information security. And I'll never forget when I started looking for another position, I talked to a friend of mine that was a PM there, and he was kind of like a mentor to me. And what he said to me is, your resume, you look like a jack of all and master of none. And I was like, what? And so he was like, you have to kind of focus which area you want to go in. Is it business continuity or is it cybersecurity? Because I was kind of lumping the two together because that was the role I was in. And so I decided that I said, you know what, I'm going to make my resume look, I'm going to focus my resume more on the cybersecurity space. And that's how I ended up landing the job at SunTrust as an information security officer. So that was really my first formal role as an information security officer.
Great. I mean, to kind of figure out business continuity to cybersecurity, two different things, but, great decision. I'll be honest with that.
I agree.
So who was one of your greater mentors out there?
I would say early in my career, I had a mentor that I worked with. He was a PM, and he was at the company I was working for at the time. And he was a mentor for me because he kept me accountable, not only for the work I was doing, but for an executive presence perspective. Because that was one of the things I struggled with earlier in my career is really, working with people, being able to understand other people's personalities and making adjustments and things like that. So I struggled a lot earlier in my career. So as a mentor, he held me accountable for some of my behaviors that I would exhibit. More recently, my boss brought me over to Department of Public Health. He mentored me a lot too. That's how I started off. That was my first CISO role. And he helped me a lot too. So he's been a mentor to me too. And then there's other people in the industry, people that I meet at different conferences and that I keep in touch with, and they mentor me a lot on the cybersecurity side.
Okay, all right. So what was one of your greatest challenges to get to your career level today?
I think my greatest challenge on a personal level was, again, that interpersonal piece. And that's why I speak so frequently about interpersonal skills and, the ability to having that skill that you need to be able to communicate with people in the business, because that was a challenge for me, right? I was always a person who was very much into communicating, but I was working with people who really weren't. I really didn't know how to handle that. So a lot of times I handled that the wrong way. So I had to get to a point in my career where I learned how to, hey, none of this is personal. Everybody works different. Everybody learns different. Everybody communicates different. And what adjustments can you make as a professional to make your relationships work, right? And so to get the job done. So that was something that I struggle with a lot in my career. I feel good to say that I'm at a much better place with that now. I would consider myself pretty much an expert in, communicating and making sure that you make those adjustments in the workplace so that you can get along and you guys can get the job done. Because everybody knows working with people who are really technical, it's a challenge sometimes because they're not communicators. They're very smart. They're very hands on the keyboard, but they would prefer not to discuss anything. They would prefer to just get their work done. They like to work in silos. So a lot of the challenge for me was breaking down some of those those silos, and making people feel comfortable having those crucial conversations so that we could work together.
Totally agree. That means, sounds like that communication piece is actually a very important part of your job, actually. And because I know how techies are.
Yeah. Yeah. And having that technical training background, I had to know how to communicate because I had to always communicate with them, because I found myself training techies on how to do stuff, training people who are not so technical how to do things. So I had to be on both sides of the fence, so to speak. And so I had to figure out a way to mesh the two.
Okay. I hate it. That's great. So what would you consider some of your early mistakes that you made or have been in cybersecurity?
I think some of my mistakes were really, not recognizing the importance of making sure you have executive buy-in, right, in everything you do, right? So as cybersecurity professionals, we know that cybersecurity is super, super important, right? And we're learning more every day with different attacks that we're under. But a lot of senior leadership really, really just did not understand it. So I found myself, working hard to push my cybersecurity agenda and kind of doing it off on an island. And, I found that I run into quite a few challenges around that. So I had to learn to stop working on an island and more include executive leadership more in these discussions. And again, going back to the communication, strengthening my ability to communicate up to that level. So that was some of the struggles that I've had. I wanted to get the cybersecurity thing done. I wanted things to be better. I wanted to improve the posture, but without that executive buy-in, it means absolutely nothing.
Makes sense. What is the greatest accomplishment that you are most proud of?
Oh, wow. I think my greatest accomplishment, this may sound a little strange, but just to see the people who have worked under me in cybersecurity and seeing their success, right? So when I started at Department of Public Health, I had a cybersecurity analyst that came in to work under me, and she had no experience in cybersecurity. The only thing she had done was a little bit of auditing, but she was like a help desk manager, so she knew the ins and outs of the technical piece, but she didn't have any cybersecurity experience. And so I decided, because I liked the way she communicated, I saw her interpersonal skills. I said, hey, I can teach her cybersecurity. Interpersonal skills are a little harder to teach. And in this particular role, you really have to be able to communicate with people, because we were building our cybersecurity program up from the ground. Like, we really had nothing to work on. So we knew it was going to be a lot of constant communication with the business. communication with senior leadership. So I needed somebody who was up to that challenge. And after 3 years she worked with me, I mean, it's bittersweet. She was recruited to another Fortune 500 company. And, for her to come back and say to me, Tamika, one thing that I'll say is that, person who interviewed me told me that she didn't interview anybody else after she met me because of the skill set that I had. Like, I could do so many things in cybersecurity. I knew incident response. I knew security awareness training. I knew, vulnerability management, because you taught me you helped me get into so many different areas in cybersecurity. So to hear that and to see her success and, go off into a Fortune 500 company, and she's probably going to trailblaze out there, that to me is a huge accomplishment, and I've done that on more than one occasion. Like, I really like to bring people in that and kind of teach them and build them up in this space.
Oh, okay, great. So with that being said, teaching, do you suggest for them to go back to school to get maybe like a cybersecurity degree or the certifications? How do you feel about those?
I straddle the fence a little bit on cybersecurity certifications, right? I think they're good when you're looking for a job, but I don't think they really give a good indication of what you know, right? Because when you take those certifications, you have to sometimes, especially if you were already in cybersecurity, you have to change the way you think to be able to pass those exams, right? Although you're doing the work different every day in your everyday job. So to me, that kind of contradicts itself, right? What I typically tell people who are new in cybersecurity is say cybersecurity is very broad. You have the governance side of things, you have the technical side of things. So really the first thing you have to do is really recognize what side of cybersecurity you want to be in. What is your passion? Do you want to be more governance, or do you want to be more threat intelligence, hands on the keyboard? What is it that you really want to do? And then once you figure out what that is, then you can kind of figure out what path you take to become successful in that, whether it is going back to school or whether it is getting certifications. I think certifications are a lot more beneficial in the technical side of the house as opposed to the governance side of the house, because if you're going to be, do threat intelligence, you need to know how to hack. So you should probably go back and get that ethical hacker cert. But I think it really depends on the role and what it is you really want to do moving forward.
Great. Well, what advice would you give a young woman or young man who wants to get into cybersecurity?
I would say, and I say this all the time, I would say to find a mentor, find somebody who is in cybersecurity, working in the field every day. And there's tons of people out there that don't mind mentoring. Shadow them, see what they do, get a good understanding of cybersecurity and the different aspects of it, because it's not just one big thing, right? There's different areas of cybersecurity. Get to know those areas and then find out what your passion is, find out what it is that excites you, so that you can get into something that you don't get into something just to say I'm in cybersecurity. So you want to get a mentor, you want to meet with that mentor often. You want to share information. You want to spend some time with that mentor in their role, shadowing them so that you can see what it is they do and ask them to help you to see what it is some of their team members do, just so you can know, what side you want to be on. One of the things I tell people all the time is that I am more governance than technical, right? I'm probably not the most technical people, but I meet people in cybersecurity that are super, super technical, but they don't understand the governance side. So you really have to, figure out what side of the fence you want to be on.
Yeah, that's true. And for those already in the field, what advice do you give them to actually try to move to the next level? I find a lot, being a recruiter, I find a lot of people that, they just kind of plateau and they want to move to the next level. So, what advice would you tell them?
I would say the same. I would give them the same advice. You want to find a mentor. At that point, if you're already doing cybersecurity, you probably already know what side of the spectrum you want to be on. So you want to go and you want to get a mentor that's on that same side of the spectrum. and you want to network, you want to meet different people, you want to, see what's out there. You want to join LinkedIn, you want to join some of these groups on LinkedIn and, see what's out there, Yeah, because I understand all too well that concept of plateauing. So, you really have to kind of put yourself out there, do your research, get you a mentor, and don't just get a mentor just to say you have a mentor, but get a mentor and really spend time with that mentor, really say, hey, is there a day I can take off from work that I can come, to your office and really shadow you, because then you put yourself in, you put yourself out there. And then if that person knows of anything that is coming up, they can kind of, help you to get into that role. The other thing I would say is education, not necessarily certifications, but education. Go back and learn more, get another skill under your belt. So if you are on the technical side, then you want to go learn how to hack. You want to go make sure you understand all the red team, blue team tools out there and make sure that, you have that skill set.
All right. So, being a woman in this field, how did you maneuver through your career in this male-dominant field?
Lynn, I haven't had a lot of challenges with that.
Okay.
And I hear people talk about that a lot, but if I'm going to be totally transparent, I have not had a lot of challenges with that. Most of the roles that I was in, it was men that pulled me into those roles, and they were okay with it, right? In the last, since I've been in cybersecurity, I had one female boss. Everyone else, they were men, and they gave me the opportunity. They pushed me to shine, So I haven't had those challenges. I really have not,
That is totally great. So what do you see the biggest cyber threat to companies these days?
It's changing. Every day it's changing so much, right? If it was 6 months ago, I would say ransomware, right? But today, I just read about this Russian APT thing going on where they're launching attacks against government agencies. I just think that the attacks out there are so widespread that you just got to make sure you understand defense in depth and you are applying that. Because the minute you think that there is, this is the biggest threat, there's a different, bigger threat out there, It's like we really just can't get ahead of these guys. So we got to make sure we're protecting the entire environment. We got to make sure we have defense at every level.
Right. So what are some of the cost-effective things that you can tell layman people and also companies to keep these threats at bay?
I would say things like simple things like enabling multi-factor authentication, right? Having strong passwords, right? Changing your Wi-Fi password at home, like simple things that people just don't even do. So, that will help you again. And I'm just talking to, like you said, the layman person, right? And I do that a lot because we do so much security awareness at the agency. And what we do is we try to help people relate it to their everyday lives, right? Be aware of these guys, these robocalls that you're getting, understand things, educate yourself and understand things like Social Security will never call you and tell you that your benefits are expiring or anything crazy like that, because there are so many phishing attempts out there. And if you are just not paying attention, you're not keeping up on what's out there and what's going around, it's very easy to be tricked. So I tell people, do your research. I have an older mom myself, so I'm always talking to her about, making sure that she, everything you see via email, you don't click on, right? Everybody who calls you and asks you for information, you don't share that information, right? So, just making sure that you are educated. There are sites out there that you can go out there, and see, like Department of Homeland Security. There are layman sites that are out there that tell you what some of the threats are and what you can do. So, just help people to get educated, I would say, because people really don't know where to go to find this information. So if they don't have people in their lives that share this type of things, they could very easily be tricked and fall victim to some of these attacks. They're out there. Like I was just telling our mobile device coordinator yesterday, I said, oh my God, I'm getting so many robocalls about Social Security. I'm getting them like at least 6 or 7 times a day. Someone's calling me pretending to be the Social Security Administration and saying, that there's something going on with my account, right? So just think that call gets into the wrong person's hand, that person will answer and that person will provide all of their information and then their credentials are compromised.
Yeah, that's so true. So Tamika, I really appreciate your time for this interview and talking about everything about cybersecurity. I really appreciate it. You also being a diva.
I'm a diva now.
Yeah, you are a diva, somebody that's driven, inspirational, that's visionary, that has taken action in security.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. I love the acronym.
Oh yeah. And it's, diva, at first everybody's pushing back, but with the acronym and understanding the background of it, and everybody, I mean, you are one of those, a trailblazer and everything else. So I really appreciate it. Anything else you would like to say?
The only thing I would just say is, keep doing what you're doing, bringing, women together in cybersecurity. I'm a big fan of that. I'm a part of a lot of organizations. I do a lot of speaking just to kind of get the word out there that anything is possible for us as women. If we want to be in cybersecurity and we want to trailblaze and we want to be CISOs, we can. We don't have to be, but we can. I applaud you for what you're doing. And I say, just keep bringing us together and keep encouraging us to encourage each other.
Yes. Well, Tamika, you take care, and I will sign off right now, and you take care.
You too. Thanks.
All right.